Maestro Ron Carter is here. We said, ask him anything, and we meant it. So Maestro.
Good afternoon to you all, wherever you are.
Wow.
Hope it is indeed a good afternoon. It's one good afternoon in my house.
Morning here.
This meet, M-E-A-T, M-E-E, will have to be cut short at the 1:45 New York time, because I have an appointment at 2 o'clock. So those of you questions, don't fool around and try to word them. Just get them out there so I can do the best I can. Okay, Tom. Tom Favera.
Yes, sir. Good to see you, Sir Ron.
Thank you.
Can you explain? I know we've talked about your upright playing. That's where everybody, that's kind of your thing. But could you tell me more about your electric playing? I'm primarily an electric player. What kind of helped you from that realm? How are they the same? How are they different? What was kind of the direction you had from that standpoint?
They are a completely different instrument, different animal, if I may use that zoological analysis. One of the things I learned as I was playing with it was that it's a whole other physical relationship between the instrument and my body, given the string length, the size of the instrument, the fingerboard, where the sound comes from, how easy it is to make your sound different with all the devices they have, the pedals and stuff, all the sonic options they make available to electric bass player. And the time back in the day, 1963 or 64 or so, when electric bass became more visible thanks to Mark Montgomery and Lionel Hampton's band, the engineers and producers of the commercial music at that time were stumbling on another way to give some musical sound to their product. Having said that, everyone in New York who had an upright, who was making those dates, Bill Hinton, George Olivier, Richard Davis, to name a few guys, we all had to go out and buy literally a Fender bass because we didn't have one. And secondly, the engineers didn't know how to record it for that kind of environment because they would never have to be responsible for that. Having said that, not only that, they had no amplifiers in studios to do that stuff. So you get 6 guys walking down 46th Street and 7th Avenue in New York, scuffing around with a bass, upright, scuffing around with an electric bass around their neck, and pulling the Ampeg B15 within 3 yards of them. It's probably my most important relationship with them. I did make a lot of commercial music because that was the sound at the time. And I'm on some pretty good jazz records. But I realized that if I'm going to be a good upright player, I got to just learn how to play that. And to this day, that's where I'm at. Sitting in the chair right now, actually. That's where I'm really at right now.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Here's a question from Richard Allen from Italy.
Oh yes, I have some ties of his.
Oh, that Richard Allen.
Yes, hello, Richard.
All right. And his question.
Hello, Mr. Carter. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Nice to talk to you again. Great pleasure.
I'm doing very well.
Good.
And well, you can ask your question.
Okay, in which case, thank you very much. Very simple question, Mr. Carter. I'm going to read it, actually. Your reputation and your legacy speaks for itself, and we thank you for that. But if you were a 20-year-old musician today in 2022, with all the pros and cons of how music is made and distributed, what would you be doing to start your career?
I'd get a teacher.
Okay.
But in terms of, wait.
Sorry.
I want to find out how this thing works. If I like it that much to kind of go out and buy one or watch fewer and fewer guys and get my own concept, the first thing I'd want to do is find out, how does this thing work? Where are these notes? How best can I find them? How can I stand up for 75 minutes every night and find these good notes and not be exhausted at the end of the set? Next thing I would do is go out and buy some LPs if they had any left, and just hear how they were recording the sound of the bass how it changed during the past 15 to 20 years. Then I'd find the nearest gig I could and just play on it and find out what I couldn't do right.
Okay.
The last thing I'd do is get a price for my services.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I missed that last point.
I found out what my monetary worth was. I want to determine that, not those guys.
How would you do that when you're young and unknown?
Well, anyone who adds 2 and 2 can figure that out. I mean, that's not really complicated. You got bills to pay, you got lessons to pay for. If you're going to use the bass as a vehicle to get those things, you got to figure out how much it's going to take of you to do that. How much can you afford for lessons? Can you find out teachers in that price range if that's what your focus is? Do you have a tuxedo? Do you have a dark suit? That's kind of the attire, more or less. You got to earn enough money to buy a tuxedo. You got to buy a dark suit.
Yes.
That's how you begin. Unless you're living at home with your parents and you're on your own, you understand budgeting. You understand what it costs to be here, wherever that is.
Okay.
And making a budget to survive on is kind of like the laws, kind of the way we get around today for the past decades. We find out how much we need to live. That helps you burn. When I first started, I'll let this, after this answer, let it go. When I was first starting out playing this music and I was getting some ability to make a living, I asked Carmen McRae, how do I go on the road and do this stuff? So Ron, sit down and figure out how much money you would make if you were still in New York. Figure out how much of that would go to your bills in New York and double that to go to Detroit.
Okay.
Unquestionably, I missed a lot of gigs.
Mm-hmm.
My bills at New York were always paid on time. My kids weren't worried about being out in the street. My wife didn't fear about money for the groceries. No, it's pretty simple, man.
Okay. Sound advice.
Don't go away, Richard. I want to see you. So I get you me and your great ties. He has made some great ties that he has shared with me, and I want to thank you again, Richard. I wore one last night, and I'm going out today. Ha 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 ha. And we're a different one.
Okay. Well, it's a great pleasure. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Marshall Zucker has a question about Oscar Pettiford and standards.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. I want to thank you, first of all, for sending me out to get this last time we spoke. I'm a very long-time student, amateur vibes player. And I also happened to, just by accident, get the Roy Ayers album that you on. I think Stone Soul Picnic, and I enjoyed that very much. And then I was going through, just because Frank Foster was my teacher, and I came across the one on here. So I find you all over, and I'm grateful to you for that. I had 2 quick questions, if I may ask. This first one's a little bit on the spiritual side. When you first came into the, I think I'm okay now, into around the 1960s, it was the time that the great Oscar Pettiford passed on. Do you have any feeling that you've specifically for him have helped carry on in any way? He was absolutely great for the music, the entire realm of the music, not even just as a single instrument player. But did you have that feeling about him at all?
That he continued the march of the bass up to the front line.
Yes.
I hadn't thought of those terms because I wasn't sure what that was, other than there were some guys who were responsible for the bass sounding like it did right then. Early Ray Brown, early MJQ guy, Percy Heath. There were guys who were really making the bass do something. But one, because they weren't really recorded well unless they were the band leader, a lot of their nice things never got acknowledged like they could be heard today. I wasn't the historian I became later as I started playing the bass more and found things to do, how important it was to understand what came and who came before me. Eugene Wright, for example, they weren't the big names, but they're guys who were, George Vivian, who were making the bass do something way past Pops Foster.
Thank you.
Whether Oscar Pettiford could be put in that crowd, that's not my job. My job is to understand what he did, and if I can, find out why it worked so well for him.
I think I once read a statement that you made about the fact that it's not easy for the listener, for the basic listener, to absorb many, many originals, and that's why standards are so important. Did I read that correctly?
No,
Okay, that's why I'm asking you. Good. Thank you.
you know, and I said that so quickly because I get tired of people thinking that the wonderful jazz players play down to their audience. You know, so they play standards so the audience who's maybe doesn't know what instrument they're playing and doesn't know what key the song is in. You know, stuff we heard the jazz audience is held so responsible for stuff that the classical orchestra audience has no sense of. I mean, if you go to any classical concert, I defy you to touch anyone in there and ask them what key is this thing in. Or if you go to any opera, man, unless you speak to someone who is really from Germany, can they tell you what the lyric is that they're singing? At some point, someone else realized that problem. So they had the back of the chairs in front of you with the transcript of the lyrics in that local language, written in your English in this case. Well, I treat the audience who comes to see me as wanting to see some great music. They want to see some great tides, and they want to go home hearing a melody. I try to provide all that stuff for them, man. If they don't know what key I'm playing in, good. I'm not sure until it's over. You know, is it the right key? You know, if you're not dancing, maybe it's not the right tempo, but if you sit down and listen to it, you won't have to dance to dig it.
Thank you very much for today's 6 credits. Thank you very much, Maestro.
Okay.
Seth Greenstein has a question. He'd like to know your approach to creating the bass line on one of the classic Miles Davis tracks, Pinocchio. It's so original and so different from how everyone else played at that time.
What's his name, Mr. Shelburne?
Seth Greenstein.
Seth. Yes. Hello, Seth.
Hello, Mr. Carter. What an honor. Thank you very much for taking my question.
Well, one of the reasons you heard that line in there because at the time I was the only one playing that style. When I was in a band that could tolerate a little bit different bass line from the bass player, and anyone would come on their own.
Yeah.
One of the things that always bugs me
Because
is
this
the
is
guy
what
comes to
happened.
the
I had
band,
to hospitalize my mother.
that comes to the gig with a song and says, "Hey, bassman, make me an intro for this song." And I say, well, "Okay, where's the bass line?" So, just give me one. So I said to this guy, "Well, what's the melody sound like?" That's it. You know. So because they depend on us to make their melody valid, it puts extra pressure on us to find something that makes that happen. Freddie Hubbard's Red Clay, it fits in that category. He had a great melody, but he had no bass line and no intro. My job was to give him that before he got drunk and went home. So I locked the door, hit his trumpet case, and gave him a downbeat. Here's 8 bars. This is all you got. This is all you're going to get. 8 bars.
But for Pinocchio, I mean, the chord structure for that song isn't really obvious. You really created it. And
Pardon me 1 minute. My sock broken. Hello. Hey, I got a Zoom. Let me call you back. And hold those socks aside for me. Okay, I got a little joke every now and then. In any event, that bass line came about because that's all I could figure out to make that melody sound reasonable to me. And because we had not played on the gig before, I was just again put on the spot to make a bass line that goes to this melody, whatever it's going to be. I'm stumbling on something that's pretty interesting. Okay. If I played it four times more, maybe I would have not had such a good idea after 4 choruses. Just enough to give the song some impetus, some kind of direction, some kind of here we go gang kind of thing. And the result is that bass line. And D flat on Fender.
right. Oh, it was on electric.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's on the Dan Electro, as a matter of fact, one of those old things.
Uh-huh. Wow.
Okay?
No, thank you. I mean, I'm studying some of your books, Chartography and the Comprehensive Bass Method, and they're extremely helpful in thinking outside of the usual box of the way to approach bass lines. But
Thank you.
in the Pinocchio, I mean, I've looked at the transcription of it. I've tried to play it, and it's just so hard for me to comprehend how you could come up with that, something so original and so different.
On a very short space of time.
Just-
Which is why it's for the bigger bucks. And I don't always get it, but that's okay. I want to sound verbally competitive. Thank you, Mr. Greenstein.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brenda Seiler from the Washington Informer, whom I believe you met the other week in DC, is asking, how often do you perform your cello in concert performances?
It's been probably 30, well, let me just go back a minute. October 21 on PBS, it's a Ron Carter Finding the Right Notes biography, documentary.
Okay.
And the last part of this documentary, about 90 minutes, the guy asked me to play some cello for the going out scene. So I went back, moved the clothes that were covering it up and moved the shoes out of the way, took it out of the closet, got a broom and got the ants and the bugs somewhere else, and played something. And I hadn't played this cello in 32 years.
Oh,
It sounded pretty good. Maybe not quite Philharmonic quality. Those guys can't play in the bass section either. So it was kind of even. I had fun.
are there any recordings?
October 21, 9 p.m. PBS.
Okay,
Finding the Right Notes.
thank
Yes.
you.
You're welcome. How are you,
And
by the way?
I'm doing fine. I'll put a link to my article about you in the chat.
Thank you.
Please do. Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Hicks is noticing how busy you are and wants to know how you're feeling.
At my age group, I'm having unusual physical challenges. Having said that, none of them have gotten away of me trying to play the best notes I could find whenever I could pick up the bass. And I'm still picking it up on a regular basis and putting it down very casually and slowly.
Thank you, Saran. I always thinking about you, of course. I couldn't help but think about how were you feeling? You were played so many gigs, and then on to Japan, and I was keeping track of where you were going, and I was looking at your upcoming gigs, and nothing that I could go to. I was hoping I would be able to see you live coming up soon, but that's not going to be able to happen. And so I really am happy I could see you today. And,
Thank you. I'm not sure, Rick, where you're located, but I'm at the club called Birdland in New York.
Yeah, I saw that. You're
for a whole month.
Yeah, I saw that.
Different gig every week. So
I
I'm
wish
like
I could.
all of me or none of me for a month.
Yeah. If I could afford a hotel room, and I would fly out there in a second. But I've had a lot of
God works in
expenses.
mysterious ways. I wouldn't.
Yeah. Boy, if I
her.
could get a table, and do they have tables in Birdland, Saran?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to meet.
Anybody named Rick gets a special one.
Yeah. Well, you and I have communicated a couple of times, and boy, I'd love to meet you and have a good seat in Birdland. That would be a lifetime dream,
Well, in Birdland, they're all good seats, man. Just get there.
Yeah. All right, brother.
All right. Safe.
Yeah, you bet, bro.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Now, Grant from Australia, where it's 3 a.m. So thank you, Grant, for staying with us here, is asking, how important is listening in music, especially playing live?
That's what we do. Those guys who can't listen, they work seldom. I tell my students, when you get your gigs, you have to do the following two things. Leave your ego at home and get a spare pair of ears. If you can do those two things, you find some work. Listening is critical. I tell them start listening in stereo rather than mono, which means just to them. Depending on how big the band is, those are extra ears times 2. I got a 16-piece big band coming up to New York in October 18 to 25, something like that. And there's 16 pieces in that band. I treat it like my quartet. So I have all this other information coming at me to help me make choices, whose lives for that set time I'm in charge of. So I'm listening to what they're going to tell me they need to have. I'm trying to find out if I agree, if I can do that, and when that gig is over, try to make them play better that night. That's my job. And wear a nice tie, of course.
Barry Hall asks, he has a question about Mike Longo.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I was wondering if you had any recollections of those sessions, how you got the call, how was Mike to work with? What was the atmosphere when you were recording? Was it all live? Was it done really quickly?
What records are you speaking of?
Be the Matrix
Okay.
and the Awakening.
You know, I studied piano with Mike for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied with him because my plan was there was a club in New York called the Knickerbocker, strictly a duo room. And I worked there until I got tired of working there. You know, it's a nice place to play, good owner, good listeners. And I decided that one night I was going to walk in and say, okay, no more bass playing. I'm going to play piano. You play bass. So I studied with him seriously. He has some books out that I bought that I read religiously. I go to his house every other week. We get the cigarette ashtray out of the soundboard, dust off the keys, you know, and have a lesson every 2 weeks. So I was determined I was going to play piano one of these gigs. So I'm in Japan now with the octet, and in this place called the Sony Building or something like that. It's like upscale Bloomingdale's, and they called us for an encore. So I told the piano real old hand to get out of the way. I was going to play this encore. So that's the time I threw Ruby, My Dear. And no one was more shocked than me that I got through it without shedding a tear. And I realized that I'm best off going back to the bass with more intensity and let those guys play piano. Let me mess them up as a bass player. But Mike was a really down-to-earth player. He understood harmony and chords from working with Dizzy and understood the bebop character, I guess I would call him. He was a very, very good teacher. He understood how important it was to share information. So he wrote his own books, nice books. And he had a great language skill that was probably not for these people here, but it was interesting, you know.
Right.
He was religiously into the Baha'i religion. He had a band that worked at this place down in Lower Manhattan. And another guy who left too soon, who I miss.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great chat.
Are you in a bicycle shop?
No, I'm in the garage. Yeah, I work in the garage, so I've got a lot of bikes.
What do you do in the garage?
I'm a designer, so I'm working online all the time. So.
Are those bicycles behind you?
Yes, yeah, a couple of bikes.
Are you working on the design for bicycles?
No, graphic design. I work for the Linux Foundation in San Francisco. Yeah.
Everybody else, no one heard that, so don't worry about that. Your job is safe. He's not.
Okay. All right. They're pretty cool.
He's not designing you out of work. Don't worry about that.
Right.
Hold on a minute.
Sure.
That was the NYPL, New York Public Library.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I tell them I don't read very well, and not very often, so don't call me anymore. I do support them, though. Gotta read, man. Despite what they say about jazz players can't read, that's really not true. Okay, Andrew, are you still there, Andrew?
Hmm?
Okay,
The next question is from Audrey.
Okay.
She has a question about audience makeup. Is there any difference in today's audience makeup? And what to do about education of our glorious music, please?
I'm not sure how you define makeup. I mean, how they dress, what they bring to the gig in terms of physical presence, physical
No,
outfit.
I'm talking about the actual makeup. So I'm talking into. Sorry, good evening, everyone. I'm
Hello.
Audrey Hall, radio
Hello,
presenter
Audrey.
from Manchester in the UK, and Mr. Roncarter. Good evening.
Good evening.
First thing we must do is acknowledgement to Ramsey Lewis, obviously, who we lost yesterday.
Yes, I heard
And
that this morning.
Her Majesty the Queen, who we lost last week. Thank you very much for inviting me to the forum. And I think it's really interesting to hear you guys talking about theory and notes and practice and all of that stuff. I am sure came to Mr. Carter through a live stream that I did last week. And it's something that I've been talking about for an awful long time. And it's giving our props to the guys I call our lions, the legends, whilst they're here. Don't wait until they're gone to come out and say they're great. And you know, Mr. Carter, you and Mr. Lewis, obviously, you did get your props, and you do get your props, and that's great. But perhaps what we don't get, and the thing that Walter Beasley was talking about, was giving props to what the guys were doing in the 70s, 80s, 90s. These are the guys who actually were defining what we kind of know as jazz, and obviously informing what happens today. And you know, for me, the most important.
Audrey, give me the question, okay?
Well, for me, the most.
Everyone's holding their breath and waiting for you to tell them what they want to know from me, and I'm with them. I want to help you, but I can't jump in because the background up to the story is taking more time than we have in this. I got to leave here at another 20 minutes. I got to be out of here. So if you get to what you want me to ask you, I'm happy to try to answer you in the time that's left.
Okay, forgive me. Two things. The audience makeup. I'm talking about the people who come to the gigs, the racial profile of the people who come to the gigs. Is it any different from back in the day to what it is today? Because we've just had the Manchester Jazz Festival, and I talked to lots of musicians, and obviously we have the most splendid array of the greatest talent on the stage, and they're playing, and they're not actually playing to people, and it's a thing that hurts me very much. And also for me, it's about the feeling. It's about what happens when that music hits our ears. It's not about the technical.
Audrey, what is your question?
My question is has the audience changed? And for me, it's not about the technical note. For me, it's all about the feeling. It's the conversation. It's what happens when you play.
I keep cutting you off because I want to give everyone else a chance, so I'm trying to answer you in a polite fashion without offending you. My concern with the audience, Audrey, is not so much their presence. Of course, it's necessary for them. My concern with them is that are they bringing an open ear to my musical suggestions to them? I don't want them to think that I'm playing where I think what people equate was down to their level. I want them to be there because there's a story going on the stage that they haven't heard of yet. But this person in front of them and these guys or gals who are accompanying this particular band, in my case, the Foresight with Jimmy Green and Peyton Crossley and Irene Rosnes, are they prepared to hear the story I'm bringing to them? There are events in the world that make my options to do that and their mind space so different. And of course, I can't control that. The Queen passing away, a major assassination, someone hit a home run right in the middle of stuff. All I can do, Audrey, is make sure that when they see this band play that I'm responsible for, in this case, to get a chance to hear a great melody, to get a chance to see people who have worked for their craft, get a chance to see people who are determined to make sure these people who are coming to support them, we return the favor by playing as good as we can based on what they have in their heads for the day. My last hope is that when they see me in the street, they want to say, hey man, what's jazz? Because if they've been to my concert, that's what I think jazz is. I'm the leader of 4 different groups, and each group is a different phase of my musical life. I would hope that whoever they are, however they are dressed for this gig, emotionally or physically, that they'll be prepared to accept some new commentary, some new usage of the English, of the languages that we use, to walk away saying, I don't know, man, but it sure was great. I'll buy that. Okay?
Great.
Thank you.
Dan Morris says, you can create a groove with one note. What is your process of starting to play a new tune? Do you try to find a basic groove that fits into structure of the song and build from that?
Well, the first thing I have to do is, what is the form of the song? How many bars is this tune? What's the shape already given to me? What key is it in? Is it a key written by a bass player like Oscar Petrarch would write, or is it by a piano player who has these verbal skills? He doesn't play like this all night. What's the tempo of this piece? Is it slow enough for me to confine all my skill level within the skill level that this guy thinks this tune belongs at? And my last thing in my mind is what makes this sound, what makes the sound of this song, whatever it is, can I help that sound by my choice of notes and my placement of the beat, whatever that is.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And from Matt, when writing a song and you are presented sheet music, I understand you may make adjustments to help the song sound better. How do you approach this when, say, the trumpet or the saxophone has not been recorded or written yet?
I trust that the saxophone, the trumpet player, is comfortable enough with me and my choices to know that if he listens to my choices, I'm giving him another option that hadn't occurred to him. And I would like to think that the solo he works on at his house, understandably, it's not working tonight. I am not going to allow that. And he can take it, he can like it or lump it, but you playing with the Sharks now, you know, and the Sharks are pretty cautious about the chum they fool around with, so to speak. You know, I'd like to think that they trust my judgment, and that my judgment can lead them to some really nice places. If you don't believe it, you can ask Art Farmer or Chet Baker or Charles Tolliver, you know, some guy named Miles, I forget his last name. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maestro. Thank you. That was so informative and helpful.
You're welcome. We got got 7 minutes. I want to get 3 questions in, so please consider that.
Okay.
Yes, comprehensive message.
Raise their hand, go.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Carter. I just have a question. Did you have a particular song of the mid-60s quintet, which to me is my favorite band of all time? Did you have a particular song in the live repertoire that you loved more than the other one? Something that you would be looking forward to playing?
No, I thought that, John, 3 things. I've talked to people named John like I'm talking to you right now. And I noticed they have no H in their name.
Okay.
And I've found out how I can reach them, and I've sent them an H. So the name looks complete to me.
Oh, it's Jonathan. The real name is Jonathan.
Too late. Just plain John, Jon. Look, you know, when I go to work every night, I look for a chance to play good, first of all. Second, I look for a chance to help the guys who I'm playing with, sometimes against, get better, because I'm standing there trying to find the right notes and phrases to help them see another way to play through this song. And the third thing I try to do is make sure that I'm playing them with the music, not me with them in the music. Of course, I'm playing what I do, which is why I'm on the gig, you know. It's a pretty decent sound, interesting choice of notes, great shoes and tie. Yeah, they're things that make me attractive to them. But I like to think that one of the reasons I'm hired by this group of guys is that the amount of experimenting and experiencing that I've already done. I've been experienced for a very long time on this music, and hopefully they will understand that my choice of notes is based on not just the kind of skill level, but it's based on making enough mistakes to find out what doesn't work anymore. And having said that, then we look for having a great time with this song, whatever the song choice happens to be.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Even if it's the wedding song. Okay, I can do that. Yeah.
Make it good, right?
Yeah, and B flat. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so we have one more question.
Yep.
Time for one more. Working with, from Matt, working with Donald Byrd and creating Cantaloupe Island. How did that bass line come together?
Was it Donald Byrd or Freddie Hubbard? I can't remember.
The question says Donald Byrd, but I think Cantaloupe Island was Freddie Hubbard.
Okay. Well, you know, I did a couple of records, and after the first two courses, I forget whatever else is going on. I think certain tunes imply certain rhythms from the bass player to make them work. You know? And I think Herbie's comping, you know, showing us the melody, already had an idea of what a broad idea of what bass line would work, and we couldn't tell it was going to work until the drummer played what he played. And could Herbie maintain his groove based on what was going on with these guys playing their own solo concept? You know? All the time, my choices for those kinds of changes don't always work. And I have to just start saying, wait a minute, that feels good to me, man, but these guys, it's kicking their ass. How is that possible? You know? So my choice, the next choice is, if I want to stay in this band, I have to play something that's comfortable for them to groove on, whatever that term finally means. And I stumbled on some pretty nice grooves. That's what I kind of stumbled like everybody else. Fortunately, I have a good memory, so I can try it on tomorrow as well and make my alterations then. But I depend on them, the other guys in the band, to recognize that I'm bringing a different thing to the table. You know, and what they would expect from their playing piano at home poorly like this. And, you know, I'm a little past that kind of harmonic analysis. If you trust my choice of notes, you'll find that they work sometimes too. You know? Thank you, guys. Look,
Thank you so much.
I'm headed to my next appointment. I'm sorry that we owe you 2 minutes, all of you. So if you come back at the next subscribers conversation, and let us know that you were here, I'll try to talk to Ms. Shelberg. I'll let you guys get the first question in first. If you have a
Definitely.
question. Please, I got to go. It's nice to see you all. And please, the lady in London.
Audrey?
Yeah.
Audrey?
Yeah, Audrey. I meant that. Don't get upset with me. I want to help everybody else as well as you. And I was trying to get to your question so that I could answer it. In any event, I like I remember Tubby Hayes, one of the great saxophone players out of London. Wonderful player. We had some great times together. So whoever plays good, call me and I'll join them. Thank you. Each and every one of you. Thanks for the meeting today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maestro.
Thank you, Sir Ron.
We'll do this again. We'll do this again.
Thanks, Penny.
Blessings.
Bye.